Director Patton, coming to you today as a part of our Black History Month series. What we did starting last year was to do some interviews with folks that are African-American movers and shakers in the community. And we thought it would be a really good idea for us to talk to folks and share information with you about local African-Americans that are making really significant contributions to our community. So today I have Robert Bell, who's the director of our Economic Inclusion Department for Hamilton County. And I've known Robert for a couple of years now, and he's doing a lot of good work at the county in support of making sure that the county is doing business with African Americans to a larger degree than we have in the past. And so, Robert, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up, where you went to school, and start with a little bit of background there.
Okay, yeah. Grew up in Cincinnati, grew up in Walnut Hills, attended Catholic schools in Walnut Hills, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Catholic college, Catholic graduate school. I think I was just preordained to do this. My mother was very active in the Catholic community in Walnut Hills. For a long time and stuff. So really, I've been in Cincinnati almost all my life. I moved away for a while just to try something different up in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. Loved it and stuff, but came back and went back to graduate school and got married and didn't leave. Got it. And started having kids.
Wonderful. So I know a lot of folks may not know, but Robert has been working in this space for quite some time. He's worked for a lot of large nonprofit organizations in Cincinnati and Hamilton County. He's worked for CMHA. He's worked for Beach Acres. Now he is with the county. He's also worked with United Way. Tell us about those experiences and what do you think you've sort of learned in your pathway in your career about making sure that minorities are represented in the work of the community, and why? What have you learned about that, and why do you think that's important?
Well, Michael, I've learned a lot from every place I've worked, and that's the biggest, I think, gift that I was able to get was to work in some very unique and very important industries and nonprofits and organizations that allowed me to learn a lot when I was going through. I spent most of my career at United Way of Greater Cincinnati and went through almost all departments, worked in all departments, allocations, planning and development, even fundraising, and got to know a lot about nonprofits and how they work. Went back to school to get my graduate degree when I was with United Way, and took and began a program teaching business methods to nonprofits on how to be successful with using business techniques. And then I also ran a leadership training program for African Americans called Project Blueprint. Was a national program United Way started when I was there, and trained African Americans to be leaders on nonprofit boards. And that came about because when I was at United Way, working with leadership development with the nonprofits, we looked at their diversity of their boards, and it wasn't good.
Right.
And one of the things that they said when we asked them, why do you think you're doing what you're doing? And they said, well, we just don't know who they are. And so, we started Project Blueprint, and I did that class for 11 years and had over 400 graduates over those 11 years.
Wow.
And majority of them, a lot of them are still very active in nonprofits. I run into people probably 3 or 4 or 5 a year or a couple of months. I'll run into one and they'll say, you got me started in this.
Yeah, right.
And it was a 6-month program. It wasn't a small deal.
Yeah.
But I did one program a year, and I did it for 11 years. And that was amazing. It was Robert, a great learning experience for me.
Yeah, that's interesting because you said something that kind of piqued my interest too, because I think I've heard this before when you talk about equity in contracting, equity on boards and things like that. One of the things I heard you say just now was about there's just no one out there. There's not really a large pool of candidates to do whatever the dot is. What has been so you train African Americans to be able to not be able to, but to have access to boards and things like that. What is your history tell you about those kinds of concerns that are raised around equity in spaces?
Well, people don't know what they don't know. You kind of get used to your own environment, the places that you travel and stuff like that. It's like when I got with United Way, and with Hamilton County, and started doing the equity framework training around what true equity is, and that not one size does not fit all kind of things, and how we provide our services. I would talk to them about, well, how are you finding your staff? How are you providing your services? Do you know if you're reaching all parts of the community? And they'd say, well, we don't know. And so, we spent a lot of time learning how to do that, how to connect with the community. I think we're familiar with it. We've been using the racial dot map for vulnerable and African American communities, and with different departments, for them to see if they're providing their services equitably and throughout Hamilton County. And a number of them found out they weren't over the last couple of years, just using that in the equity framework thing. So I think it's a common theme, but it's not like it's maliciously being done.
Right.
It's just what they're comfortable with and what they got used to. So it's about, because of the whole thing about equity framework, which is part of the training that I've done with different departments here, is that, you really have to try to get to know your community. And the whole thing is community engagement, and the root of engagement is engaged, and that means to induce to participate. Just because you're here offering services doesn't mean people are going to use it. You have to involve them, get them connected, understand more about them, all that kind of thing. A great example, I started over a year ago, doing a program called Getting to Know You with vendors and purchasing people at Hamilton County. And because when I asked them how they were doing with small and diverse companies, they were like, well, we don't know who they are.
Right.
That theme again, right?
Right.
They did the same thing when I asked about our vendor list and why we don't have a lot of, diverse people on our vendors list. Well, we don't know who they are. So, I started the Getting to Know You thing just a couple of years ago. But when I got here in 2018, I started the BOLD list, building opportunities by leveraging diversity. So because I wanted Hamilton County to have a list of vendors and that would list who are small, minority, and women-owned businesses, so they know who they're picking and not picking. What I mean? And it really heightened people awareness. And the BOLD list has become, at least the Board of County Commissioner departments, the vendor list of Hamilton County. When I first got here, I inquired about the vendor list, and I was told we really don't have one organizational wide. And so I said, we got to change that. And so I had been working, and we got over 700 companies on that list now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's doing some great work. So there's some common themes about why we do this and the benefit of it. But I'll tell you, Michael, one of the biggest things that helped me after I got here, because I've been in inclusion and development. I did it for the Housing Authority and HUD. I did it for United Way with my leadership training and stuff. But the biggest thing I learned is that when I went, one of the biggest things I think I was able to do that affected me at least was getting connected to GARE, Governmental Alliance on Race and Equity, and I had Hamilton County take out a membership, so I got access to a lot of best practices, theories, tools, all that kind of thing, and peers across the country, and it has benefited us a lot. So it took me from doing a lot of education and meetings and stuff like that, which are necessary for inclusion and diversity. But GARE tells us that we have to get rid of barriers and obstacles, which are systemic, which are organizational wide and are systemic. And that's what I've been concentrating on for at least the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, what I've done too, this is really going to tie in what you're talking about. So for those of you who don't know, we've been working as well in our contracting department. I want to give Laura Wolf and her team a shout out because they've really been engaged in looking at what we're doing from the social services side and the contracts that we have related to caring for children and other contracting that we have opportunities for to contract directly with JFS. And I'm sharing a table that you sent over to me, Robert, about the progress that's been made in Hamilton County, specifically towards minority and Black enterprise spend
Right.
over the last, looks like at least 3 years,
3 years.
from first quarter of 2020, and that trend
Right.
line is going up. And I think that kind of speaks. I'm sharing this to the screen, so I don't know if you see
Yeah.
it or not, Robert.
Yeah, I
But
see it. I see it.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I'm sharing this to the group because I think it is an indication of what's possible when you have the will, right? The political will. You have person in the position who understands what it takes to have conversations with people about maybe what they haven't been familiar with in the past and what the options are, and how we can start to make some progress there. But that graph, I think, speaks volumes for the work that you and the office has done since you came on board.
Yeah.
And it looks like that is positive for you and the team.
Oh yeah, and it surprised even me. When we, I mean, because when I came here, we had to benchmark. You know what I mean? So I started putting, because when I got here, a lot of people couldn't tell me what the whole organization was spending. So individual departments knew what they were, but they couldn't tell me as a whole. So then I put together the quarterly economic inclusion reports by each department, and just so that we can benchmark and know where we're starting from. And that was and I knew I had to do that because my background is federal procurement too, with HUD and Housing Authority. So I know I had to do that because I did that with them to get started. Because it takes me back to the Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy when they said you need to go to the Emerald City, and Dorothy's, well, how do I get there? And the witch says, well, it's always best to start at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had to do that. But that graph, I shared that graph with my large group of community partners about a week or so ago, and it went viral because I got calls from the city manager, the mayor's office, city council, the Ohio departments up in Ohio, the Ohio Department of Development. Yep. Saw it and they were like, wow, because a lot of them were like, well, we knew Hamilton County had a ways to go, but how did you do this? Mm-hmm. And what I tell them is again, my association with GARE, our work when I did, because I even did it with your staff, the equity framework training. Yep. Yep. But you guys were ahead of most of the departments in that because you started your own. But what it comes down to, if you're going to do systemic change, then let me tell you what I tell people is that if you're not getting the results you want, and this is from my education, I got my MBA in organizational development, all that kind of stuff, is if you're not getting the results you want, it's because you don't have the policies, practices, strategies, and expectations in place to get it. Yeah. So what we did is do that. And if you see on that chart, there's some real things start to happen in 2020. And we hadn't even done a disparity study yet. Mm-hmm. Okay, but what we did was we started setting the expectations. We made some. We had the bold list going, and we had some practices where people had to go to the bold list to find organizations. That started in 2020, so that's when it really started taking off. Mm-hmm. And then because we didn't get the disparity study done until 2022.
Wow. All right. I didn't even realize that. You're right. You had done that work, sort of the groundwork before the disparity study, but we sort of anticipated that. Based on the numbers that you had gathered when you started, that we were missing the mark, and we could do a lot better. Right. And the disparity study just confirmed that. Talk a little bit about the disparity study and kind of what, for people who don't know what a disparity study is.
Yeah, a disparity study is really a legal document that if you really want to do any special requirements for minorities and women, you have to have a basis for it, because affirmative action was outlawed, years ago, a long time ago. So disparity studies had come a way for organizations like us to establish a compelling governmental interest. And disparity studies, what they do, very simply, is you have a group that comes in and they do an analysis of your utilization of contractors. Where you spend your money over the last 5.5 years. And then the geographic or relevant area for us is a 9-county area. It includes Hamilton County and surrounding counties, where we spend 95% of our money on services. And so it takes a year to do a disparity study. And the reason is they review every contract over $10,000 for that 5.5 years. Oh yeah. And then analyze, who got the payment, what the demographics were, all that kind of stuff. So they have that information. But at the same time, the disparity study has subcontractors that do what's called a utilization review. And that relevant market area, They go around through surveys, census data, focus groups, emails, personal interviews, and find out the availability of of women-owned businesses, minority businesses, in the areas where we spend our money. Okay, It's got to be very specific because of legal issues, and they do a review of that to see what's available, what's really available now, and the problem that municipalities had before was they thought availability should be just demographic data, but it can't. It has to be if they're available, are they capable, and they're willing. Because not everybody wants to do business with us.
That's right.
So we had to take those out. So it gave us a lower number, but it gave us a truer picture of what's actually available for the work we do. And what we do is we use those availability percentages data to establish our goals for all projects.
Gotcha.
And it's a fabulous system, and it's working very well. And we finally got everything in place. It's being used 100% now. For what we're doing, and it's really working well. And so, but what it does is, like I say, it gives us the compelling governmental interest to do remedies to correct the situation. And that's basically what a disparity study is, because what it has to show is statistically significant disparities.
That's right.
Of our use of those groups.
So it sort of eliminates this idea that there is not really actionable data that that drives the decisions that we make relative to the targets that we set for minority inclusion on spending, which is all about equity and fairness. And I really couldn't think of a better interview during Black History Month than to talk to you about that kind of progress and ongoing progress and work that you're doing with the Office of Economic Development to make sure that the county is representative and working towards that goal. And that, I think that is a tremendous. The other thing I heard through some preliminary research before we talked to you is that you're going to be recognized by City Council at some point this month. And so first of all, I want to say congratulations. I don't know what that is. I'll let you share what this is all about. But I just want to say congratulations. Like I said, you've been doing the work for a long time. And so I think a recognition is well deserved. And I want to congratulate you for that. But tell us what it's about.
Yeah, well, Victoria Parks was a commissioner here.
Oh, right.
She knew a lot about my work, and the city was for a long time to match the city was my goal. The city started their first disparity study in 2002.
Yeah.
And then they did another one in 2015. And I was like, we got to do some disparity studies so that we can. And then they were able to, from the 2015, when they were able to establish some mandatory goals for minority and women, and they moved with it. Well, I was jealous of that for a long time. And then we came out with ours to start ours in 2021, and they did too. They needed to, because you got to do it every 5 to 7 years to determine that you still need it or you need to do a bit more in order to gain that true equity. And they started theirs as well. But they just had some issues with it. And Victoria was kind of brought me in to kind of ask me, what we did and how we did it and what I used and all that kind of stuff. So I've been talking to them about some of our successes and how we got there. And they have always been a great partner with my program here ever since I started. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. They really are. And I want to see them continue to succeed. And I think they will. Yeah. And so Victoria's behind, but she was telling them all the stuff that we're doing. Got it. And she's, and so they're going to have a resolution on the 22nd, at the awesome. February 22nd meeting at 2:00. And then because because she knows my background and stuff, so she wanted to recognize me as an individual for Black History Month. But I'm inviting all my staff. Awesome. And all my, because I've got a fabulous group called the Economic Inclusion Advisory Council that's still helping me, and the commissioners established that even before they filled my position.
Right. Yeah.
But those folks have been a godsend for me, and so I'm gonna have the leadership of that plus my staff, and I'm just gonna bring them up and say it takes a village. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? For this kind of work, it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to raise true equity.
In addition, that's beautiful. Congratulations again. In addition to that, too, I'm thinking about my staff, the team at JFS, and individuals who might view this interview and think that, hey, how, in addition to what we're doing with our contracting unit and working with Robert and his team around our levels of contracting, is there something that an employee or someone who might have an idea or a thought about work that someone they know does, or that someone in the community that they've identified, how could they make them aware of the work that we do in Hamilton County with respect to inclusion?
Just have them contact our department.
Okay.
Gabrielle Whaler is my small business development person. She takes the lead, so they can just email Gabrielle at Whaler.
Okay.
And EIAD, or email me and I'll forward it to her.
Okay.
But like I said, we're here to help. I keep telling people, we're here to help each department. I work with each department, and I'll just give you one example if you hadn't heard this one. And if they, I met with a lot of departments who asked, Robert, we want you to help us kind of sit down and make sure we're reaching all parts of Hamilton County. Well, I did a consultation with environmental services, and the recycling programs and stuff, and we used the racial dot map because I did a training using it, and they said, wow, Robert, how would we know if we're reaching and I said, well, plot out your services that you did this past year on a clear map and put it over the racial dot map.
Yeah.
And it was surprising. There wasn't a really strong match.
Right, sure.
And the reason is because, and it wasn't intentional or anything like that, but, who really gets the first, who comes down to the council meetings, commissioners meetings, who makes the phone calls, who sends the reports, who have the most, the squeaky wheel gets it all the time.
Yeah.
But they realized that they were missing. But the other thing is they knew, and they're being in part of environmental services, who gets hurt the most from environmental issues.
That's right.
Waste, odor, industrial sites, all that
air
kind of
quality.
Stuff. Air quality. I mean, and they were like, wow. Okay. So they changed their whole strategy. They're not serving those other people less, but they're making sure that the most vulnerable communities get a greater portion of their services. And so they went out there and had meetings out there and talked to folks out there. But the same thing happened with emergency management and their homeland security plan, disaster relief plan. They came to me and said, Robert, we want to make sure we're serving everybody. And I said, again, where have you been doing they would do interviews and questionnaires and stuff and send them out to people to get their feedback on what you would need if there was a disaster in our area, any kind. And what do you need that we could help you with? And they found that they weren't getting to the most vulnerable. Because who you think get hurt the most when there's a natural disaster?
Right, absolutely.
So again, they used the same process, and this was for their 5-year plan. They realized they needed to get data from those vulnerable and marginalized communities, and they used that map to do it.
Well, Robert, I want to just say thank you for your time. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview, and I hope that the staff who follow up and have a chance to view the interview, find that worthwhile. I certainly think the work that you're doing for Hamilton County is important for all of Hamilton County because it makes us better. The more people that are included in the process, the better product you have in the end. And that's always been my belief. And I just want to say thanks for the work that you're doing for Hamilton County citizens. Congratulations on your recognition as City Council. And I appreciate your time. And we will continue to move forward and continue to work with you on our efforts at JFS to support the work you're doing at the Office of Economic Inclusion for the county. So thank you very much.
JFS has been a pleasure to work with since I've been here. So I really appreciate.
Team. I want to give a shout out to my team.
They
Laura and all her staff have been fantastic.
Absolutely. So I appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
No problem. And I will figure out how to stop this recording.
Okay. All right.
Let me stop that real quick, and then we'll